Hey everyone, Jen here with another episode of Shiplog 0227. We're still covering the Darth Vader Dark Visions comic. This is issue 2, and this one is called Unacceptable. Now, out of this one, I think a lot of cool stuff happens in this one. Not gonna lie, this one really has Darth Vader in it. Maybe all of like 3 panels. Maybe it's pretty funny. So, as always, we have a lot of these different Star Destroyer ships. They mostly have their own fleets, and if we know what we do already about Darth Vader is he can't accept failure at all. So these guys are chasing this rebel ship and are going to try and catch him, and just as always happens with most of the stuff with rebels, is they actually hit hyperspace before another ship can, and some places, just because most of the time rebels have smaller ships, they can go in hyperspace, get out, and then actually hide somewhere, because most of them are, 1-2-man ships, not these giant, super huge Star Destroyers that, those kinds of ships would reside inside of. So with this one, we have where we have this commander guy. He said, don't worry about it. We will massage this stuff into truth of everything that did happen, and we will try and get around it from there. I mean, the guy did escape, but I think with everything else that we have, that we've had a pretty good success of it. Now from here, we have where the commander says, I think we did a good job. We got everything else we needed. The rebel guy stole where didn't steal where this base was, but stole the outline of it. And so that's another thing that they're kind of worried about, but they're like, he doesn't know the location, so we'll be able to basically take him out later on, and no worries. Well, as that happens, they're trying to get together to go back home, I presume. And instead of really good news, for the commander and everybody that they believe, the news that we're having is they did such a good job. The Emperor agrees about the job that they've done, that it is really good. And that Darth Vader is going to come, I guess, interrogate or see the prisoner, which in this aspect, his name alone is what terrifies our guy, the commander of this vessel. We don't have an actual name for him. It's kind of like in issue 1 where we have this unnamed blue alien guy. This one's kind of another third-party representation of Darth Vader again. And so this guy kind of has flashbacks, knowing, because there was a big unit of, I guess, commanders or something, and Darth Vader basically went in and slaughtered, I think, all of them but one, and left this other guy. And he said, you weren't put in a position of power and didn't have a failure, and they did. He goes, don't fail me, or this could be like the same turnout as you. So this guy has seen like 7 people, I think, get like force choked to death, and doesn't want to suffer the same fate. So he's very, very, deathly terrified of being on Darth Vader's bad side with this stuff. So he ends up telling his crew, he goes, hey, we can't do anything. We have to figure this stuff out, and we're going to go back and try and find this guy. And I'm a little confused on how well he kind of knew, because I've never seen any other commander with such accuracy on finding where the person went, but they knew the tactics of the rebels. So I kind of wonder where in the full scheme of things did this actually take place? Because they kind of knew. They knew what the rebels would do, which is most likely hiding in an asteroid field. So he jumped forward and picked a planet that had an asteroid field floating around it, and this giant Star Destroyer fits into it. And I have to say that it is almost like a parking lot where there's 2 big trucks or anything parked on the lines for one spot, and having a huge Hummer or dually fully loaded F-250 pull into the spot, and maybe the person climb out of the sunroof, something like that. That is about how it is for the Star Destroyer in the asteroid field. They do find the rebel guy, though, but the ship is being damaged left and right, and this guy is just completely blindsided to everything. He says a Star Destroyer can basically sit there and survive anything for at least 2 minutes. So he puts all the power to their shields and to their thrusters to actually catch this guy. And so the rocks and everything won't damage the ship very much. And as they go, they are chasing him through all of this stuff. And they do kind of come out a little bit of it and not have to worry about some stuff too much. They get pretty close to him, and are really just trying to catch him at this point. But he's pretty smart for a rebel, having the plans and everything, which I have to say too, I like the name of his little droid. He's kind of got a C-3PO droid, but it's all blue, and it's called EXO. So I just like that. Usually we have the R2-D2 models are, or something like that, in the newer ones with BB-8. Those are the ones we usually have. Those are our little information kind of droids that sit in the ship. So I like that we have kind of that one, which I guess the guy could also kind of be the pilot maybe. But it is quite fun to see, just a different droid of what we usually are used to seeing. But this guy at some point messaged the rebels and has let them know where he's at. And the Star Destroyer continues to chase him through the asteroid field. Again, not the smartest plan with a huge ship that is not meant to be there, and it's just basically the fleet carrier. It takes ships to places. It's not to be the chaser of stuff. Now we do have in this instance too where the guy does tell everybody, release all of our TIE fighters, all pilots go in and and go after this guy. Because at this moment, he actually flies down into the planet's atmosphere, and it's very sandy, very windy, and things are about to happen. But let's take a quick break before that. Hey guys, we are back with the second half of Unacceptable of our podcast, Ship Log 0227. And we are covering the second half of Darth Vader, Dark Visions, Unacceptable issue 2 of the comic. So, where we left off, a commander of one of the Star Destroyers and the Allied fleet decided that he would go and try and catch this rebel. And first mistake, flew into a asteroid field with this ship, knowing full well that most of the energy will probably be depleted from this, because we kind of have this immortality of the ship really getting damaged for 2 minutes. Now, from there too, we also have where all of our TIE fighters have been released, every single one of them. They've all went into this planet's atmosphere following the rebel, as the commander has asked. And in doing so, has basically overheated all the engines and everything else. I mean, they're not exactly made to go into like windy desert planets at all. So this rebel flies kind of through it. Some of the ships actually die while on the planet because of the sandstorms and the wind and everything, basically overheating the engines and killing them off. The ones that get out do get back out of the planet's atmosphere and are still chasing this rebel down. And as it happens in all great Star Wars movies, that somehow, due to clever tactics and maneuvers, the rebel ends up behind the ships and ends up blowing them up. Thus, this completes all of our TIE fighters basically just completely damaged and scrapped because of a commander's error and being scared of Darth Vader. That's really what's causing him to do all of this stuff. Now, the other thing is, from here, we do also have where he decides, okay, we have no more ships. You know, he has asked, hey, send out more of our TIE fighters. Well, we don't have any more, Commander. Sorry. But that's where he gets the clever idea we'll just mow him down, basically, with the Star Destroyer. So they continue to go after him as well, still through the asteroid field. This has got to be well over 2 minutes at this point. So the ship is getting damaged by all of the meteors and everything else floating around. And as it moves forward, we do have kind of a bluff that's not a bluff that the rebel thinks that he can get away with, and he does. Inside of some of the meteors, there's these giant space worms, and we've kind of seen them before. They're inside of them. Space doesn't really affect them, and they like to attack and eat anything that kind of flies close to them. Now, this is the part that I really like in this comic, where the commander just says, follow him at any means possible. We are going to continue to move forward and go and get this guy. So he tells them, just follow forward. Go chase him down. If he flies into the worm, we're going into the worm. Now, it's a little different. Again, as we talked about earlier with the Hummer analogy of parking and doing all this other stuff. So, in this is where, like I said, that I really enjoy this part, though. As the little rebels, kind of crew little man ship that fits into this thing nice and neat as if it was eating just food. Then you have this Star Destroyer that is so big that the edges, even if it was to go straight into this thing, the edges of it would still stick out. Think about, if you don't know what the Star Destroyer is shaped like, think about like a giant solid piece of pizza. I mean, they are triangular and huge. But this part really just kind of reminds me of the little picture, and there's a few of them floating out there, of like the anaconda that tried to swallow the alligator or the crocodile or whatever, and it is too big for it, and its stomach and muscles and everything actually can't contain it, and it ends up blowing out the side of the snake. It's too big, and so, it's like a rubber band. When it stretches so much and it can't stretch anymore, it breaks, which is what happens to the snake, which is what happens to this giant worm. And our issue, as the Star Destroyer starts going, the sides of it start pushing through its mouth and end up just kind of ripping this worm in half. So I like the ingenuity of the Star Destroyer in this, kind of going and being used as a weapon to kind of kill this worm as it goes. Now, again, the ship should have never been in this asteroid field, but I love the ingenuity that happened in this part. We do have, though, where I guess worms aren't like that bad when it comes down to like if you can hurt them or anything. So the rebel ship gets further in sight and actually blows a hole out of the side of it that it is on and flies out. Now we still have this huge Star Destroyer that is following the ship and tries to fit through this tiny hole as well, at least just the tip of it, the nose, and has basically ripped this entire worm almost in half. So, and I'd like to make a joke and say it was like butter, but I'm not exactly sure how long that it took that to happen. But this does give us more problems than what we initially would have thought about or wanted from this. Out of this, we do have where I forgot what they're called, but they're kind of like these little leech bat things. And they actually like to hook on and attack stuff. And, it doesn't matter where it is. They'll just start attacking whatever it is. And flying through this, they're kind of like the parasite inside of the snake. Or inside of the space slug or worm or anything like that. And so when it comes down to it with this stuff, the ship flying through this worm actually gets all of these things on it. And it has many of them on there. And that's what these things do, basically attacking and dismantling different parts of the ship. They can't turn the guns on. They can't do any of this other stuff. They can't even really turn the shields on. And they can't do anything to get these things off by like jumping into hyperspace or whatever, because of the position they're in the asteroid belt. And also from earlier, when they depleted a good amount of the energy using it to fly through the asteroid belt the first time trying to get this rebel guy, and causing the ship so much damage and energy that now it can't really do anything. And when these things attack it, a lot of the other stuff is just off. it doesn't work anymore. And that's kind of another thing that you have to worry about with all this stuff, is you may be able to maneuver part of the power from one thing to another, but in doing so, it takes away from somewhere else, which we also get caught up in. This commander forgot all of this stuff, which is just a pain in the butt. Now, moving forward from that part, as he is still chasing him down, using brute force, basically with the thrusters and everything, chasing the rebel guy, a small fleet of rebel ships come out that are probably the medium type ones, and open fire on the Star Destroyer, thus damaging it beyond repair from chasing or anything else, especially because it doesn't have shields. Initially, this would have taken a pretty long process to destroy where the shields are, to destroy the engines, to do all this other stuff. And because of all the choices that this commander has made, has left himself defenseless with the shields, with the TIE fighters that would have went out to defend him, and all of this other stuff, all to try and catch this one rebel in fear of Darth Vader. So, long and behold, these guys basically beat the crap out of the Star Destroyer and leave it where it is. I'm sure they jump into hyperspace and leave. And in all of this time, Darth Vader finds the ship, and the commander's still alive. And as Darth Vader walks into it and is walking around trying to do all this stuff, obviously does what Darth Vader is going to do, because instead of having one small thing where this rebel guy disappeared, you have now basically damaged the Star Destroyer beyond repair, taken out, most of the resources that go with it, other ships, everything else, and have basically just ruined all of this crap with that. So it does seem acceptable to where everything that happens to this commander, everything, getting force choked to death, which we don't see, but we can assume, after the stupidity of him doing that. So, and we do get this part too that I really like. We end it the same way we kind of started it, the commander says that it's unacceptable that the rebel got away, but they're going to be lax about it and say, hey, we'll milk it later on, we'll fix it up. And because of all this, now he's gotten to the point where instead of him saying it's unacceptable, to go all the way forward to the end of this, where Darth Vader has entered the ship and tells him that this is unacceptable. So that is where we kind of leave off with this one and have this other dark tale of Darth Vader and what all really happens out of it. So anyway, though, guys, thanks for listening. Stick around for issue 3, and continue to listen to Ship Log 0227. And we will go from there and just have a grand old time in space. So anyway, thanks for listening again. As always, see you next Tuesday.